tribute.
All right, folks, welcome back to another TFFL webcast. It is Tuesday, November 21st, Thanksgiving week. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Tonight we are looking back at Week 11 action, looking ahead to Week 12 action. 2 more games to go in our regular season. Lots to talk about tonight. Let me get our introductions out of the way here. Starting with a very special guest. First time ever on the webcast, I believe.
Yep.
Badass Bobby fucking Vaughn. Welcome to the webcast.
Excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right. Filling in for the Mongols. I believe Terry is traveling. Happy Thanksgiving, Terry. Chief, our commissioner, skipper of the Sponge Fishermen, still in first place.
Hello again.
Back at home. Welcome.
Thank you. Bobby, do you watch the webcast once in a while?
I mostly listen to it while I'm doing my paperwork. I'm not often watching the screen.
Fair enough.
We'll take it.
But I listen every week.
Let's go to Berto. Jack's Giant Killers. Breaking 60 this week. Well done.
Yes. Bobby, good to hear you're listening. That's great news.
Hank,
the only way I keep up on the TFFL.
You have to. Hank, czar and CEO of the K-Wheels, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Good to be here. Badass. I'm sorry that the graphics department is totally lost on you then, if you're only listening.
No, when it gets to the graphics segment, I do click over to the screen.
I spend so much time on the graphics.
Or if I hear everyone start laughing, then I know someone did something silly and I go back and watch what happened.
All right. Good.
Nice.
All right. Good devoted viewer.
Yeah.
I'll also shout out to Berto on his Carson Wentz jersey this evening. Well done.
All right, we have lots to talk about, of course, as we head into Week 12. Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, as I often am, but the trade deadline, I believe, is tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow at noon.
At noon. All right, hours to go until the trade deadline.
Get the email to the commissioner before you worry about announcing it to the rest of the league. You know, let's not have any fax machine hijinks or any other Cleveland-related, hilarious fuck-ups in getting the trade announced. So get it to my desk by noon.
We talked last week about teams most likely to make a move. I think there are still a lot of trade talks going on. I would be surprised if we don't see at least one, maybe more than one moves in the remaining less than 15 hours now. Okay, other news and notes, other headlines we were reporting on this week here at TFFL Media. The AMPAC back on track, over 100 points, clinching division and conference titles and the #1 overall seed. We'll get to some of this in the standings in a minute. The defending champion Lizards, I think unofficially out of the playoffs. They may be able to sneak in a scenario or two, but their loss this week puts them in real trouble. I got to confess, the Aliens making a huge lineup decision, specifically benching Latavius Murray in favor of Kenyon Drake, effectively costing me a game this week and the division title. Actually, I think 80-plus points on the Aliens bench this week. As I mentioned, the Killers broke 60, first time all year. Scores regardless, they keep winning. They're 7-4, just like the Aliens. Likely in the playoffs, but over 60, trending in the right direction at this time of year.
I did tell Phil, we were texting, I said 70 was the target. Fell a little shy of that Monday night.
You didn't need it this week. I didn't give you a game, so.
Yeah.
One step at a time, Berto. 60 this week, 70 next week.
Yes, I'll take
God
it.
forbid.
80 the week after.
All right, and the real game of the week, the big game in terms of a hyper-competitive division right now, the Sponge winning a classic for control of the So-So West, beating the Hams 85-83, I think it was, extending that Hams losing streak now to 7 straight games. Sponge now with a winning record for that division. And still maintaining first place, a full game ahead of the Senators there. Last item I just want to throw out there to kick us off here. I wasn't quite sure where to put this, but it is worth a quick question. We're really giving 7 points away for a 60-yard field goal. Is that actually in our rule book? And
I'm outraged by this.
Since when?
We should not have a 7-point field goal in our league.
Yeah, it happens about once every 5 years. I'm fine with it. But yes, it is in our rule.
We got to change that.
There, as far as I know.
I'm going to be leading the charge for the change on that. A maximum 5-point field goal value.
It is in the rule book. I asked it on the chat, and Chief said, "Go look at the rule book." So I did.
It seemed like a silly question to me.
It is, in fact, in there.
All right.
God, it's terrible. We should not. We'll talk about this in the offseason.
I think.
Would you feel better if it was,
should not exist? We don't have 9-point touchdowns for distance.
Would you feel better if it was 6?
No.
We have
So,
10-point touchdowns.
For rushing, yeah.
Well, and thinking back to Hank's frustration with the rules process last year, I think we can now forecast he'll be a lot more engaged this year with a well-formed rules proposal.
Can you imagine Phil's outrage if I won by 1 or 2 points?
Yeah, I'd be so freaking pissed off. I'm glad that is not the deciding factor. 7-point field goal. I mean, come on. That's more than a touchdown.
All right, let's move on. Let's get to TFFL trivia to get you thinking here before we have our roundtable chat. I got a little bit of an oddball question this week, but you know what? It's Thanksgiving. I don't know about you guys. I'm already getting pressure to wrap up the holiday card. We'll all be sending those out in the mail soon. And you better make sure you know how to spell your friends' names right. And I see misspellings all the time on email. I want to make sure you got your address list up to date for this holiday season. And there are 2 teams where the misspellings tend to center around, and it's our Penn State brothers here, and as well as Bobby. Where did you go to school? You're not Penn State.
No, I went to Northeastern.
Okay, but the Mongols and the Beavers.
Go Huskies.
The Mongols and the Beavers, as we learned earlier this year, they both have co-owners. So there's 4 names in total. I want you to spell first and last names for all 4 of those co-owners. And I'm guaranteeing you, I'm not sure anybody's going to get all 4 of them totally right.
Is Terry okay, or do we need to spell Terrence or something like that? Can we go by there?
Terry is fine. Bill is fine.
General names, okay.
Stick, I will tell you in your email you are correct.
All right.
That's a hint, everyone.
How many points is this worth there?
1 point for every name you get totally correct. But if you miss the first or the last name, it's wrong.
Done.
All right. Get your names down for those of you watching at home. Get your address lists out. Get ready to make some corrections. We will have our spelling test later in the show.
And we should have a no peeking rule here. I think this is.
Of course.
Oh yeah, that goes without saying.
No peeking.
This is an easy cheat, so don't do it. I'm done. I got mine right here. I'm done.
If you pull up your address list or something, you might be wrong.
Yeah.
You never know. All right. TFFL standings, Hank, and the graphics department. Give us a playoff bracket, a draft order, 2 games to go. How tight are things?
All right, let's talk about this. So we just mentioned that the NOCO East, congrats to the Amsterdam Packers, 10-1, have clinched the division. I think, Stick, you're early on the conference, though. I think that there is a scenario the Fats could steal it at 9-2, but they've clinched a playoff berth. The Fats have not yet the division title. The So-So West is still a 2-horse race. As Chief mentioned, the Sponge and the Janitors will ideally get a go-for-it matchup in Week 13, but we'll see about that after this week. The So-So East, the Beavers have also clinched their division, not yet the conference due to them not winning. The wild card race is basically the Aliens and the Killers, both at 7-4 records, have got that pretty much on lockdown. The Senators, Sponge, loser could potentially mess that up, but those guys are looking good for that. The Lizards, I think have officially been eliminated. There may be a crazy scenario they could get a tiebreaker yet, but I don't think so. The Hams and their 7-game losing streak has knocked them out. Devils, Wheels, and Mongols. We won't talk about it right now, but the Wheels and the Mongols are going to have an epic clash for the #1 pick in Week 13. So there we are.
Chief, in your division, is there still a scenario where the 4 and 7 Hams
There is actually.
can come back?
You know, that's a good segue. Let me bring this up. I took a text today, and the fellow owner asked me what the scenario or how the division scenario was going to play out. So I got a graphic here. Now, I don't know how else it's going. Let me get the cat off my lap so I can approach the screen a little bit. All right. Now, how else is going to take it? But here is.
Holy shit.
Yes.
All right.
Back that up a little bit.
This is the possible outcomes. Okay, so there's 8 possible outcomes here because the Sponge and Senators do play. So we don't have the whole range of, we can't both win, both lose. So without ties, there are 8 possible scenarios here. The Sponge win 5 of them as of right now. So I'm not gonna try to do this backwards, but so obviously the Sponge win both, they're in. If they lose both and the Sens win 1, Sens are in. They'll win the tiebreaker in that case. The only one that's kind of not obvious is if the Sponge win the first and lose the second, they would beat the Senators, losing the first. So even though the Senators would win that head-to-head matchup, the Sponge will get the division. Now, if we both go 0-2, that sets up the Hams. So the Hams go 2-0, they will win that division. So they have no chance at a wild card, quite obviously. But there is that small outside chance the Hams at 6-7 would win a 3-way tie at 6-7, that division. Or a 2-way tie at 6-7 and 5-8.
So there is a scenario the Hams could get in.
Only as a division winner, right?
Right.
Yes, and it's number 4 seed.
I think it's great that drawing went viral. Kramer texted me that earlier.
I think I had a sweater back in the 80s with that design.
You're absolutely right. This is like a Cliff Huxtable holiday sweater right here.
Absolutely.
There's another TFFL T-shirt we can make too.
Crazy that the Hams can still win that division.
Yeah.
After all this.
After 7 straight losses, if they can win 2, they got a chance. Wow. Yeah, see, Badass, look what you're missing if you're only listening to the webcast, is you're missing things like that.
I would have missed that sweater design, absolutely.
Thorny's watching us live again.
Thorny live viewer. He complimented me with Star Wars.
I just got a text from him.
Yep.
He would like to be acknowledged.
Yes, Thornberg. Thank you for being our viewer.
We'll get Thorny back on the webcast soon, I think, for our annual draft preview. But let's shift into roundtable chat mode. We've got a few topics to talk about, and then we're going to talk about the big games we've got looming ahead here in Week 12. Let's start with our guests, our eye on the Steel City Mongols, Bobby on the hot seat here. Berto, why don't you lead the way? I know you've got a bunch of questions, and we'll chip in here when you're done.
Sure. So Chief stole the first one, whether or not Badass listened or watched. So that's good. We got that one settled. But Badass, walk us through how a deal gets done in Mongols camp. So, you send a text to Terry. I often get a reply back. Hold on, I got to check with Bobby, and
every time.
I go back to Terry, and I got to go back to Bob. So are you the brains of this operation, or what?
No, absolutely not. In fact,
how do deals get done? Do I need to start adding you to texts?
it might be helpful. We've streamlined it this season, probably as evidenced by the fact that we've made so many deals. It used to be Terry would text me and we'd bandy it back and forth, and then we'd want to sleep on it. Meanwhile, 3 or 4 days go by and nothing really happens, and we probably will make another deal. I kind of told him this year, if you feel strongly that a deal, because he gets all the texts, he gets all the emails or calls, I said, if you get presented with a deal that you really feel strongly about this time critical, pull the trigger.
Okay.
I'll agree with you. If you want to run it by me, I'm happy to offer my 2 cents. But if you feel really strongly that it's a good deal, do it.
All right.
I kind of felt like our long, drawn out back and forth might have been kind of hindering us in the past.
Okay. We getting a little echo?
Are you getting an echo from me?
No, it's from Berto.
No, I can hear. I can hear fine.
All right, we'll plow through here.
You're good now.
So what's your there's been a lot of talk about Terry taking over the commissionership next year. What is Badasses? What's your role going to be in a Terry Rogers commissionership? 0.
No, that's not true. I'll help him with what I can. I probably could do a lot of FAIR because I really don't have a life and don't go anywhere on Saturdays. But as far as writing commissioner reports, I don't see myself doing that. Mostly because I could never, ever live up to the stuff Chief has put out, nor can I live up to what Ralph used to put out, or pretty much anybody else who used to write those reports put out. I'm not a good writer.
All right. What's the best and worst things about being a co-owner in your mind? In part 2 of that,
being in the league.
If you had to change one thing about the TFL, what would it be? So 2 parts.
Wow. The best is being in the league. I love being in the league. I love participating. The worst part of it, there were times in the past where I didn't agree with draft picks, or I didn't agree necessarily as much with trades. In my opinion, I can't say I was usually right. I was occasionally right.
Okay.
I've tried to figure out, and this might go back to how Terry and I work together. He has teams separately that he does really well with. I have a team that I run myself that I usually do really well with. This year, not so much. I'm the top scoring team in the league. I'm 3-8. I don't even know how that's mathematically possible, but it is. So it's like each of us can have success. So why don't we have success together? So I was trying to figure out what the reason for that is, and I haven't figured it out. But I have tried not to get in the way as much this year and see if it helped our process.
Okay. I think Chief and I lived through that a little bit as well. So
it's two strong opinions. You're gonna sometimes butt heads. So
right.
Tried to stay out of the way a little more.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of co-owners, you're an active co-owner versus a Chris or a Matt or
right.
some of the co-owners we have who are there in spirit, rather than actually making decisions, and strategy decisions are tough.
The other thing I said after about week 4, I'm like, every decision I make this football season is absolute shit. You loser pool. I bombed out in week 1, bought back in, bombed out in week 3. We re-racked it, bombed out immediately. Hank can tell you what my record is and hang your hat. Lousy. So I've kind of told Terry, if you have a decision to make, go for it, because my decision making is going to be lousy. So
just to answer the question, Badass is currently 3-6-1 in the hanger hat, and his record in the loser pool was astoundingly loss, win, loss, out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's rough.
Have you noticed my strategy in hang your hat recently? I'm picking against the Cardinals every week. I don't care who they're playing. I don't care what the spread is. I'm picking against them every week.
Yeah, nice work. Well, and last week it cost you.
Actually, last week I got it right. I took Houston plus 1.5.
Oh, you did Houston. No, you missed it on the Pats the other week. You got it right.
I got it right on the Pats.
Yeah.
I've missed a couple Cardinal picks, but for the most part, I picked against them, and it's proved fruitful because the Cardinals stink too.
Yeah.
Great year.
So
great
it's an
football.
awesome football season for me.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, badass. Thanks for joining us again. I'm going to turn it over to Phil or Chief if you guys want to chime in.
Let me ask you. I mean, I'm looking forward to. I guess I'm sort of looking ahead to our Week 13 matchup with you that will probably end up being for the top overall pick.
Loser take all.
How do you approach that? Are you guys in full on let's get Saquon Barkley mode, or are you still trying to win games?
We're trying to win games. If you look at our roster, we don't usually often have that many choices to make. A lot of the guys that could have helped us, we traded away for picks. So we're set up pretty nicely next year for picks. But, we'd love to win games. If we ended up with Saquon Barkley, I'm sure Terry would be ecstatic. I'm sure I would be ecstatic. But
all right. We'll see how the strategies play out next week.
We're not trying to lose. If anybody's wondering that, we're not trying to lose. We'd like to win.
Part of our agreement in this league is we're all going to put out the starting lineup. And if anyone wants to critique it and think that they would pick better or differently, go ahead. But I don't think anyone's accusing anybody of tanking. I'm just, how do you feel? You're going to,
No, but to Bobby's point, I think both the Mongols and the K-Wheels have done a good job of shedding players who they're not going to have any plans for next year.
Yeah.
What that means is there ain't much left to choose from week to week for the Mongols or even for, the K-Wheels have a few options, I think. But
I've been racked by injuries though lately.
Same too. Jameis Winston out for the Mongols. Yeah, I mean you're just running out of options.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, this past week we were forced to start. I remember wondering if we were going to have enough wide receivers to play, and we ended up plugging in Amendola, who caught a touchdown pass. Awesome, but didn't expect much from him.
Bob, I like the kind of homage you have there to the Cardinals coach Bruce Arians, and your camera's just fuzzy enough. If I squint, you could be Bruce Arians right now. You drop a few more.
I wear my under glasses. I really look like him.
But you've been known to this circle as badass long before the Bruce Arians Act. Where did the badass nickname come from?
You have to ask Hank. He came up with it.
Really?
So this goes way back to when Terry was working with you. Like I don't know, however you and Terry met at some Joe job long ago, and Terry kept saying, "Oh, I got this friend of mine, Bob Vaughn, that we talk about," and we got into was it the hockey pool? I think the hockey pool was first.
Hockey pool,
and he got in, and I had never met Bob, and I'd never known him. But through email, it was, something came up where I was giving you shit about the Cardinals or you were giving me shit about the Vikings. Something sparked and I was like, oh, yeah, look at you, badass. And it was some offhanded comment that just stuck. And we called him badass before I ever met him in person.
I miss the hockey pool.
The BFV part, I grew up in Connecticut and we had a house in Old Lyme. Friends of mine in Old Lyme used to call me Bob fucking Vaughn because I was a metalhead. So everything was whatever effing this. So to this day, I'll be at the beach and we'll be walking with his kids and call me BFV because that's how everybody there knows me. So,
I mean, as far as nicknames go, it's not that bad.
I think you wear it like a badge of honor. That's a good nickname.
Reason.
So Bobby, I think one of the things I know we've talked about that explains the Mongols' struggles over the years is you guys are often at that 6-7 record or 5-8 or even at 7-6. I think you've missed the playoffs at 7-6 once, where you're just missing the playoffs. You're getting at best the number 4 pick in the draft, maybe the number 5 or number 6 pick. So this year, I think at worst, you're going to be number 3, quite likely as high as number 1 or number 2. Give me a sense of the Mongols' plans here to rebuild and go from being a team way down at the bottom to one that can actually make the playoffs and start contending for a title.
Well, we were talking earlier this year. We traded Marshawn Lynch too early. We thought we were trading him at the right time, but we traded him too early, clearly. We waited too long on Eddie Lunchy. and he's not worth anything anymore. Terry said last year, and I won't tell you the team, we had an offer. I don't know if it was a first or a second round pick during the season for Eddie Lacy, and Terry wanted to wait till after that week's game, and that was the week he hurt his ankle. So
that was as revealed to us a couple weeks ago on this webcast.
Say again?
That was the Senators.
Yes, it was the Senators. I didn't want to give it up.
He mentioned it on this webcast a couple weeks ago.
I think Kramer's quote was, "If owners would only take his first offer, they'd be in great shape."
Yeah, in hindsight, that was true. But back to the question, we won week 1, but we scored 36 points. And then things just really started falling apart. Injuries happening, losing games. So I don't know what week it was where we just kind of said, if we end up losing this week and I think we were sliding to 1-5. It's like, let's start looking at players we have and can we turn them into picks and assets for next year. So, we were ready to trade when we got Alex Collins as a FA, and you made an offer, boom, let's get rid of him. Alfred Morris, same thing, let's get rid of him. We weren't necessarily intent on trading Des Bryant, but Stick made an attractive offer, and we kind of talked about it, and I said to Terry, for his name, his big name, and his stud status, and his unlimited potential, Des Bryant never really seems to put up those kind of, dominating numbers. So if we can maybe get a good pick for him, and I kept saying he's worth a 1, he's worth a 1. We're not taking less than a 1. But then Stick's deal getting back Allen Robinson, it was like, okay, we're getting back a younger receiver, we'll take a 2. Now all of a sudden we look at next year's draft and we have 10 picks in the first 72. So next year Richie can yell at me for drafting a kicker first, because we probably will be taking a kicker before most teams, because we'll be making our 8th pick in I think it's the 4th round.
Yep.
So
you understand that?
Hopefully we'll be able to build some more young talent through that draft and hopefully take a big step back next year toward respectability.
So you understand that comment about kickers made Berto just up Gostkowski to the end of the 2nd round. We'll take him.
That's what I was counting on.
I just bumped him up. Listen,
when is Berto's first pick? That's when he's taking Gostkowski.
For 2 FA picks, you got 2 picks out of me, and well done. So, and they're actually 2 starting running backs for me right now, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, maybe Alex Collins could have been a keeper, but we turned him into a pick. I don't know if any of the other guys besides Dez that we traded were necessarily keepers. But
Chief, did you have a question?
No, I was going to say the exact same thing Hank just did. So the takeaway is Burrow has to get Gostkowski in at least the 3rd round now.
I've made a note here.
Yep. Up the pick.
I told Terry my goal was to be done drafting by like the 9th round so we could go out on the deck and do what we do at the draft and not pay attention to the last 4 rounds. But then Chief had to slide us back a 13th round pick, so now we got to stick around to the 13th round, damn it.
You usually don't pay attention to 9th through 13th rounds anyway.
Auto draft the defense. You'll be fine.
All right, one last one real quick for you, Bobby. I presume you had big hopes for Jameis Winston when you acquired him prior to the start of this year. Am I safe to write him off? You're not going to keep him next year?
I don't know. I still have high hopes for Jameis Winston. People were talking about Tampa Bay as one of those teams that was ready to take that step toward being a contender this year. And you looked at all the talent surrounding Winston, and I expected him to have a real big year. And I don't see any reason he doesn't come back next year strong. Tampa may be looking at a coaching change, but I don't know how that affects him. But I was actually this afternoon looking at our roster and trying to say, Jesus, who are our 7 keepers? I can name 5, I think, but boy, we might have trouble coming up with 7 good ones. We don't know.
You can use some of those extra draft picks next year.
We are in a position to make off-season trades if they present themselves, sure.
of
You
great.
you can trade me back a draft pick for Alf Morris over the summer.
Sure.
That sounds fair.
All right, let's talk about another team. Let's shift now. Bobby, please join the conversation here. Let's talk about another team not in the playoffs, our defending champion Lizards. They may quibble that we're jumping the gun here. I think Hank made the same point that, yeah, I think there may be a scenario or two where if a couple other teams lose both their games and the Lizards win both their remaining games and the score is just right, they may be in. But I think given their fall, I believe they've been in 3 straight packed bowls, losing the first 2, winning the most recent one. Given all of that and where they have fallen, likely out of the playoffs, let's take a look. Tell me what went wrong for this franchise this year. As Bobby was just mapping out his keepers, do the Lizards still have a strong 7 going forward? Is this just a blip? And are they back in the playoffs next year, or is this a longer-term problem for the Lizards?
I feel it was the topic earlier this year.
We have talked about, yep, they struggled out of the gate.
So what went wrong for the Lizards? I think they made a tactical error in keeping Adrian Peterson. But other than that, it's a combination of bad luck and injuries. You know, Cam Newton had a horribly slow start, and I guess that happens when you don't get any training camp or preseason in you. They lost a superstar in Beckham fairly early. Was that week 4 maybe? And Tyler Eifert, who was another point producer. You might want to say, you really can't rely on him regardless. And I think Paul Perkins was a bad keeper too. It seems like he's been playing his gut a little bit lately, which I think we all do. And he's made some unfortunate choices. I think we had Tarek Cohen over Dion Lewis sometime in the recent past. Kareem Hunt's gone cold. 2 Bears running back strategy hasn't really paid out. I don't think he's really doing anything differently. I think he's just getting worse results. But I don't. Last time we had this question, I said he'll be back in next year. This is a 1-year hiccup. I'm not sure that's true anymore, but I think it speaks more to the strength of his division than it does to the Lizards right now. He could conceivably be 6 and 7 next year and the year after that too. It seems like the Fats and the Aliens are in position to have strong teams in the near future.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I think it comes down to, the wide receivers, right? We've said how good the Lizards wide receivers were, many webcasts prior to the beginning of the season. And then you have Odell Beckham getting hurt. And Mike Evans and Michael Thomas have not been great. Mike Evans has had a couple good weeks, but, these names at wide receiver have not played up to, their potential. And that's killing them. Odell Beckham, that was a devastating injury. And the other guys just couldn't make up for that. You would think that if you have those 3 receivers and you lose one of them, you would still be in pretty good shape. But the poor play of the other 2 has just not picked up for Beckham's injury. We've talked about the Saints converting to a run-first team kind of, where Breeze hurt Michael and the Hams, it's also hurt Michael Thomas. It's a little stunning that they get a guy like Kareem Hunt too, who did so well in the beginning of the year, but Thielen's been good and they've had some other pieces, but just haven't been able to put it all together. And I actually went back and looked at Cam Newton's numbers. They're not.
That's what I was just looking at.
They're not awful. They're not awful. It's just
up and down.
Yeah, it's up and down. Exactly. That's what I was going to say. He had a couple weeks where he had 3 touchdowns, and then he had like 2 weeks in a row where he had 0. So that that inconsistency has killed him. And if I remember correctly, to Chief's point about bad luck, there were a couple of weeks maybe where he had a high score that he didn't win. So it's a combination of all that. It's just it's unfortunate for the Lizards.
I won't dwell on it. Yes, I agree with everything you guys said. So yes, cosign. Kareem Hunt, great. Started off great. Has cooled way off. Peterson and Perkins, keepers that he has not gotten much out of. And yet the quarterback position has hurt him. And we've talked about it a little bit this week here on the webcast, how the rock-solid quarterback putting up that 30-point performance. He hasn't had that many of those from Cam, maybe a couple. But, this week he, traded for Bortles and Tyrod Taylor outplayed Bortles. So, the Lizards roster, as you look at it, I think these guys are fine with some tinkering.
Yeah. Badass. Go ahead.
The thing I noticed with Cam Newton, when the Panthers win, he's running all over the field, he's laughing, and he's scoring points. If they're behind, it's like he turns into Jay Cutler, and he hangs his head and he sulks, and it's almost like he just stops playing. I'm not a Cam Newton fan. That being said, I love it if he was on my team. But I understand why Richie and Adam kept him. And they got a good return for Luck, so.
No, it's a good point. When they traded Luck and they went in on Cam, they needed him to be the happy Cam that Badass is describing, enjoying playing football and running around like a crazy man. And you're right. He hasn't been that guy every week.
He needs to grow up and learn how to lose. That's one thing, and we found that out after the Super Bowl. He doesn't know how to lose. Probably because he never really did a lot of it as a younger person, but he just lets things get him down, and it affects his performance. And he takes the Panthers and the Lizards right down with him. So
Badass, you hit the nail on the head. He's a sulky bitch. Really, he really is.
I still wish he was on my team.
Nah. Wentz, baby.
Wish he was on my team too.
No, you get Drew Stanton.
Blaine Gabbert.
Blaine
Gabbert. Don't forget Blaine Gabbert.
I think that's worse than Drew Stanton.
Actually, Gabbert looked okay last week.
Yeah.
The fact that you say that is just how far away the Cardinals are from fun. Oh.
The Cardinals are on the decline. Their window has closed, and it's sad.
Berto, I think you won the most points in that segment. You hit a lot of key points there. I mean, the Lizards have a very good team on the computer. To Rich's credit, they drafted Kareem Hunt, Adam Thielen, Cooper Kupp, Tariq Cohen, a lot of good picks. But yeah, it's too good a team to try to put this on one thing. Cam Newton's inconsistency, Perkins, was not a great keeper, is worthless at this point. But I think the receivers are the real issue. And what we didn't mention is, we used to drool over 4 deep receivers here, and he traded away T.Y. Hilton before the start of the year. Hilton's actually done pretty well, even without Andrew Luck there this year. Mike Evans, I looked this up, no 100-yard games this year. 4 touchdowns, but no 100-yard games.
He's got a quarterback problem.
Yep. We talked about Jameis Winston. Michael Thomas, they've shifted to the running game. 2 touchdowns this year. Beckham injured, out for the year. So all 4 of those stud receivers he's had really have not come through this year. And then, looking ahead to next year, as I started looking at his 7 keepers, he's probably keeping 4 receivers again. Evans, Beckham, Thomas, and Thielen, I presume, is the 4th receiver keeper there.
Yeah, he's got a good keeper list. He's 7 strong.
Mm-hmm.
But he's going to need to nail the draft.
Yep. All right, let's now shift and talk about teams in the playoffs. My last topic for our roundtable chat here is if I were to ask you to name your favorite for the Packed Bowl right now, I presume everybody's going to name the AmPack, the dominant team in the league this year. Again, back on track after a 100-point effort last week. So I want you to tell me your number 2 pick. Who's looming behind the AmPack as the team you're most afraid to face in the playoffs? who can most give the AMPAC a run for their money.
There's only one answer to this question, and the answer is the Giant Killers. They're the team to beat, not the AMPAC. The Giant Killers are the team to beat. They're going to make the playoffs, and once they're in, Berto's the favorite.
I can't quite read that. A little closer.
Yep.
Or say something.
Berto, because you always
Yes, that is the answer to this question. Berto, the Giants.
You know, the AMPAC are not my first choice. I'm still going Boba Fett's, and I like the Sponge.
Yeah, I think the Sponge, if they could get a good run in the South, unless, you know, if there is a way that the Fats become the wild card, that could become problematic for that southern side. But if it'll be interesting to see how the seeds line up. But the Beavers and the Sponge both might have a chance to get a good draw to the final, depending on how the seeds break, whatever that 3 seed is.
Chief.
Well, I mean, the Boba Fett's are clearly the second best team out there, and I think it's fairly significant gap between them and number 3. They do have to play the extra game, then the AMPAC's going to have to play, or the SoCo winner is going to have to play, which is always, you know, I don't care who you play, an extra game's an extra game. You know, it gives you one more chance to put up a goose egg. So you always I always look at the guys who have the buys. Obviously, the Boba Fett's are strong enough to dispatch a number 5 or 6 seed pretty easily.
I guess that's the game I'm talking about. That game again, the Boba Fett's will come in and play the Southern Conference champion the next week, presumably, and that's where the Sponge or the Beavers, whoever's sitting there, may have a good chance. You know, it's one game to the Pac Bowl.
Yep.
Yeah, 1 week of bad luck and you're done.
So I echo all those. I think the Fats are maybe the second strongest team right now. And actually, in all seriousness, with the Killers in the playoffs, that's the sneaky team you have to watch out for. This is what Berto does. He's been doing it all year with this team, generating wins without a ton of points, making the right lineup moves. Gets in the playoffs, he's got to manufacture 3 more. He knows how to do it.
He's never done this before. I mean, he's made the playoffs as like a 7-6 team. That was a good team that didn't have a good record. He's never come in as a bad team with a good record, to my knowledge, and done damage in the playoffs.
We're gonna rewind the tape to about week 6 of the season, where I think on this webcast said the team to beat is the Killers, and they will be.
I like it. Let's go. I love your guys' confidence more than I have in them, but that's good.
All right, week 12 coming up. Chief, run through the schedule. There's always big games at this time of year. Give us your choice for the game of the week for us to drill down on here. It's got to come off mute, Chief.
Chief, unmute yourself.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you. So I thought hard about making the Devils and Mongols game of the week, but I decided not to.
No, not in week 12.
No, you know what? Why is this? They still have last week's games up on the website.
No, I see. Are you looking at the scoring preview?
Yeah, you got to go to the preview.
Now I'm looking at the homepage here. Maybe if I refresh this thing, will work. So let's just talk about the game of the week. We got the Sponge and the Aliens, and the rest of the games are the rest of the games. I think, and I think I covered most of this in the report. You know, the Aliens, we've talked a lot in the last 3 or 4 weeks. The Aliens were going to be a wild card team, and don't get me wrong, they're still very likely to be a playoff team. But the Senators and the Sponge are winning. The Giant Killers are winning. So they need these games. 7 wins, I wouldn't feel confident with 7 wins with the tiebreaker setup that he has right now of making the playoffs. So we're through the bye weeks right now. Neither team is really being hurt by injuries. So I don't know. I like my chances. I don't take the Aliens lightly. They're a strong team. Certainly Carson Wentz is scary, but the Chicago defense has been pretty stout this year. And put Ajayi next to Wentz there, and it seems like the matchups favor the Sponge this week. So we'll see. This is dead even. It's a 51-49 game according to the guru. I'm not sure my lineup that's in there right now is going to be what I actually use, but we'll say it is right now. I think this game could be come down to some very late performances. No, I don't, because we don't have any late performances. So it'll come down to the end. It'll come down to the end of Sunday, and I think it's going to be a nail-biter type of game.
Yeah, you guys both have some Saints and Rams that are going later on Sunday. I think that'll wrap it up. But that's the game. I mean, if the Sponge win this, that's a division title, isn't it, Steve? Is that to clinch the division? If you get to 7
wins. Sponge win this game?
Yeah. Or no?
No, the Senators. I need a Senators loss.
Okay.
It could, right?
I didn't pick up which green or pink line that was on the chart. But yeah, so I mean, this is a key game. As we talked about, going to be close.
I'm not feeling super confident about this Aliens team right now, just because there's guys like DeMarco Murray, who's just so inconsistent right now, sharing carries. Jay Ajayi still getting up to speed in Philadelphia. I've got Carlos Hyde on the bench this week playing against Seattle, so I've got Latavius Murray back in there. But he can be hit or miss. My big wild card this week is Sammy Watkins. I'm hoping for a big game against New Orleans, especially with Robert Woods out. We'll see. I think this is going to be a relatively low-scoring game, maybe 50s or 60s. We'll see. It is going to be close. Chief, you've got a lot of away games. It looks like all your running backs, Phillip Rivers at quarterback, for what that might be worth. But I do fear that Rivers will score a lot against Dallas.
Sponge, 17-4, leading the series.
I saw that.
Wow, that is outstanding. 17-4.
You own the Aliens.
Yeah.
There's got to be some fluff in there, but still.
Yeah, I had the same reaction, but how much fluff can there be? That's Chiefs got my number.
Yeah,
interesting.
However, it says in last year, week 3, you killed him 98-45. So,
all right,
probably doesn't have a whole lot of bearing on this one.
Little payback, Chief. Get him back. Back in the mouth last year.
How concerned about are you with these guys you traded for? So Murray and Des Bryant. I mean, Murray looks like Derrick Henry time to me.
Well,
he just had 3 touchdowns like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, the problem with Murray's been his inconsistency, but he can have a 3-touchdown game in which won that game for me. I mean, that was a big performance. And I'm biased, but the Steelers' defense was awesome. So, DeMarco Murray did not look good, but neither did Marcus Mariota. That Derrick Henry didn't get enough touches to really look good, but I think the Steelers were just on that night. Des Bryant, Bobby alluded to this. He's not putting up the big numbers that he did 3-4 years ago, and I said this to Hank at lunch today. Bryant was a much better fantasy player with Tony Romo as his quarterback than Dak Prescott. Nonetheless, Bryant is a guy I can start every week. Murray's going to start most weeks for me. They give me good depth heading into the playoffs. I feel strong about the depth I've got on this team. And we talked about this originally. It also keeps those guys from going to somebody else. You're not seeing a lot of big names moving around right now in the TFFL. I think I've got, again, I wish I had a few guys performing at a higher level, but I've got a good, strong team deep at running back and receiver. Ben has shown he's a good number 2 quarterback, so I think I'm going into the playoffs with a good team. I'm just hoping, it's a good question. Murray and Bryant are going to need to have big games for me in the playoffs if we're going to win the title.
And the other thing I noticed too, that it seems like the first week that Zach Ertz is out in quite a while. Is that true?
I did take him out of the lineup, in part because with all the bye weeks done, I have a lot of depth right now,
right.
And
he's the odd man out right now.
And that's why I brought up Sammy Watkins. I felt like Sammy Watkins with Robert Woods out, going against New Orleans, is a good play, and that bumped Zach Ertz out. Yep. Okay. Devontae Parker is the other guy I'm looking at that may fall out to let Ertz come back in, but I like the upside of the receivers over a tight end.
Yeah, Des Bryant's funny. Each of the last 2 years, I've thought about basically the entire season, Des Bryant, and every time, and there's probably like 6 different conversations I have myself over 2 years, it came down to, is this guy really better than Brandon Cooks, or am I better off just, I typically like keep two receivers, and in the end, it always came down to, for as much a superstar this guy is supposed to be, you look at his numbers, and he's not better than Brandon Cooks, so I always considered a disappointment. He was on my team, or streaky at least. So that was a buyer beware thing for me. But again, I think the value is keeping him off the roster, the guys that are chasing you, especially when it didn't cost you a whole lot for it. And he is a guy worth keeping. Yeah, I believe in Dak Prescott. I think he'll be a good quarterback. But you're right. His value was certainly higher in the Romo era.
Badass, you can attest to this. The amount of trade offers and discussions I've had with you guys about Des Bryant and Devontae Freeman, frankly, over the years has been
every year. Every year.
It's probably been maybe 50 texts and emails about those two guys.
Yeah, but that's Berto's MO. If you take every team in the league and look at the 2 best guys, Berto's made several offers to pick them up.
Well, that's one thing Terry and I, we would always get offer from Berto, and then Hank's yelling, stop trading with Berto, stop trading with Berto. It's like, but nobody else is making offers.
See? Phil's bitching is having an impact, and I don't like it one bit. I'm filing a grievance.
My tampering is working.
If you had asked Terry and I at the draft, are we going to trade Des Bryant this season, we would have said, hell no. There's no way we were thinking that. I'm not even sure where it came from, but we just decided to do it. So
you got to make offers to make trades.
That's it.
Yep.
We liked the fact that we got a good young receiver in Allen Robinson back, so that helped.
Yep. Okay, get out your Christmas card address lists. Let's make sure you know how to spell your friends' names right. 1 point each for. There you go, Robert good. Vaughn.
I feel good here.
All right, let's take it one by one. With Berto, Terry Rogers is correct. Bob Vaughn, I'll give you all 4 right for Berto. If you don't, if you don't match Berto, and I know Hank's got at least.
Wait. Let's get Berto up there again. Is Vaughn spelled correctly on Berto's thing?
Yes, I'm not sure it was.
2 got the second A. Rogers with a D. Greg with 2 G's, and Thornburg with the H at the end.
Does Vaughn have a second A?
I got Vaughn wrong then with no second A.
Yes, Vaughn does have the second A.
Oh, all right. Then I'm 3 out of 4, I think.
My name has always been misspelled, and I never correct anyone.
You know what, Bob? And on our
Vaughn, you've never corrected me once on that. I think I've written your name that way 100 times.
Listen,
Yeah,
I didn't have it
corrected
either.
anyone.
And I almost always spell it with the A, but Bob said something during the question that made me think I was wrong, because he said something like, Hank or Stick, you always spell my name right. And
No, I
thought, well,
said
I always spell his name wrong.
when Stick sent me the agenda, he asked how my name was spelled, and I told him, yes, you were right, because he put the extra A in.
Okay, well, then
It's on my email. I have it with the A.
Right. The answer is in
I
your.
happened to be looking at the scoring preview earlier tonight and spotted it. So
all right, me and Chief got 3 out of 4, and Berto got 4.
yay.
And then Vaughn, you got 4 for the guest. Confirm that.
Yep.
You got 4 for the guest. All right.
All right. I'm impressed. There are people out there who still spell Shively's first name with well, I guess 2 G's, not 3. And I think I've seen Thornburg's name without the H at the end. Terry's name, people leave off the D in there. So I'm impressed. You guys did very well.
The Chief had 4.
No,
No,
Chief
That's great.
and Hank had 3.
Okay. Chief and Hank had 3. Guest had 4. Berto had 4. Hank had 3. Okay.
Drum roll. Where are we at?
I have Vaughn with the A in my email list.
Yep,
All
spelled
right,
just like Stevie Ray.
Just like Steve Ray, exactly what I was going to say.
Not
Berto,
like
I hate to tell you, you were 4 points behind Chief and 3 behind me, and you caught up 1. So you've now gained a point. So now you're 3 behind Chief, 2 behind me for the lead, and the guest also has gained, but is way behind.
Okay.
Just
All right.
like to hang your hat.
Chief, we missed out on some great commissioner content last week, just as you were about to give us a tour of your childhood room. What rants and reminders or maybe memorabilia do you have to show us this week?
Yeah, no memorabilia. It's Thanksgiving. We have 3 games. Starts early. So with the Detroit game, who they play? Minnesota?
Yeah,
Right, with
Minnesota's
Dallas and
the Chargers.
a weird team. That's right, Chargers, and then the
San
NFC
Diego Chargers of Carson, California.
matchup at the end. Eagles Redskins, is it, or is it? Yeah, it must be Eagles Redskins.
Redskins Giants.
Redskins Giants, yeah.
Why am I even here? Thanks, Bob. So you get those players. You want me your lineup, as we said at the beginning of the show. Trade deadline is noon tomorrow, so it's a little less than 14 hours from now. I know I've made 3 trade proposals, just for a little whisper, over the last 24 hours. The teams out there. So it would be shocking if I added an asset here going into the stretch run. Good luck to all of you. It's the holiday season's really kicking into high gear. The TFFL playoff push is kicked into high gear. The race for the #1 pick is kicked into high gear. So let's enjoy it. I say it every year, but man, it sucks being out of playoffs in TFFL.
Yes, it does.
Sitting around for 4 weeks while games to play that where people else are chasing the Pac Bowl. So I think I've missed the playoffs the last 3 years in a row. So it's I'm really feeling left out these days. So good luck. We'll see you next week.
Hey, Chief, real quick, is there any change to the free agent process timing this week, given the Thursday games? No. Just dumb question. Does it change when we have Saturday games coming up?
Nope.
Okay.
Savvy owners got to see that coming.
Yep.
Mini rant, Stick. I thought moving the trade deadline back to Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I was expecting 3 or 4 trades on this webcast alone, so that's disappointing. But I know there's a lot of stuff out there in the going back and forth. But I thought we'd at least have a couple completed on this webcast. So.
Well, this maybe breaks a streak. I think we've had 2 straight webcasts where we've had a trade live on the webcast, but I guess not this week. I'm still confident there will be at least 1 trade in these next 14 hours, maybe more. Maybe the Mongols are involved. I don't know if they have any assets left to deal, but
we'll be happy to trade Damian Williams. Make an offer.
All right, everybody, good luck in week 12. Good luck navigating the family on Thanksgiving.
Can I make one more comment, Stick?
Please do.
I've been meaning to say this for over a year. I love the lava lamp. I love it. Behind you, love it.
You're the first person to notice that. I make a mental note every time to turn that on before 8 o'clock so it's heated up by the time.
I notice it every week, and I've been meaning to say something. I love it.
Good. It's the little things in this messy.
You have to get Bob for Christmas this year.
Yeah. Right. Badass. That may have just earned you a return trip as a guest.
I need something to kill my productivity. Buy me a lava lamp. I'll lose myself in it for hours.
Complimenting our host always helps.
Well, thank you very much. All right, so good luck in week 12, everybody. Good luck. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Enjoy all the games on Thanksgiving. And we'll be back next week to talk about, it's hard to believe, the final week of our regular season. We'll be here when we meet up again next week. Study your diagrams in the meantime. We might have even crazier ones next week. Playoff pictures, relatively settled. We don't have a lot of teams fighting for that last spot. I think the SoCo West will shake things out real quick. Chief, good luck this week in our Caravan Bowl. That's a big game. But every game is big. Good luck. We'll see you back here next week. Take care.
Thankful for the TFFL.
Good luck, everyone.
Yes, very, very thankful for the TFFL.